picture this, right? It is, it's pitch black outside. Thunder is just rolling deep in the hollows of the sky, vibrating right in your chest.
Oh, I love that imagery. It's so visceral.
Yeah, and the local legend says that if you walk right up to this certain grave in New England at this exact moment, and you yell loud enough into the storm.
Like, really?
Scream, exactly. You might just get a booming response from America's greatest orator.
Which is just, I mean, it is the absolute definition of history bleeding directly into myth. You know, you can almost feel the rain and the mud.
Right.
And it sets the stage perfectly for what we are tearing apart today.
Exactly. Welcome in. I'm so excited for this one because today we are taking you right into the eye of that thunderstorm.
We really are.
Our mission today is a deep dive into two totally distinct, absolutely classic radio adaptations of Stephen Vincent Benét's legendary story, The Devil and Daniel Webster.
Such a classic.
And we are looking at the actual broadcast transcripts, which is just incredible.
It is. And we have some incredibly rich source material to work with to achieve this mission. Like, we are looking at transcripts from two very different eras.
And entirely different styles of radio production, too.
Yeah, exactly. So source number one is a star-studded, highly produced adaptation from a program called Great Plays.
Oh, yeah?
This one was actually presented by the Episcopal Actors Guild, and it stars the legendary Raymond Massey as Daniel Webster.
A massive theatrical heavy hitter. I mean, you can't get much bigger.
Precisely. And then our second source is from a program called Living Fiction.
Right, which is totally different.
Yeah, this was a production put together by Northwestern University students in cooperation with NBC. So right out of the gate, you know, you have this really fascinating contrast.
You really do.
On one hand, a major theatrical production with a very specific, explicitly stated moral framework. And on the other, a vibrant, somewhat more raw academic production that just leans heavily into the pure folklore of the tale.
It is just such a brilliant setup. Because for anyone not familiar, we are talking about like the ultimate high-stakes premise.
The highest stakes.
What happens when a down-on-his-luck, desperate New England farmer makes the ultimate bad trade? He sells his soul to the devil.
Yep. The classic Faustian bargain.
And when the bill comes due, he doesn't just give up. You know, he goes and hires a legendary, real-life politician, Daniel Webster, to serve as his defense attorney to get him out of the contract.
It is the trial of the century, held at midnight with the highest possible stakes. It's supernatural contract law.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if Webster is this immovable legendary figure, you have to ask, how do you even introduce a character like that?
It's a huge challenge for a writer.
Right. How do you introduce a guy who actually existed in history books, but in this universe has to be capable of fighting Satan in a court of law?
It's wild.
The two productions handle this in completely opposite ways. And I want to look at the Living Fiction version first because it just hits the ground running.
Oh, this is where that Northwestern University script really shines. It opens with literal, unabashed folklore.
No warm-up at all.
None. They don't introduce him as a senator or a lawyer first. They introduce him as a titan. The narrator starts by describing his physical presence in these almost geological terms.
Oh, I love this part.
The text says he was a man with a mouth like a mastiff, a brow like a mountain, and eyes like burning anthracite.
A brow like a mountain. I mean, I love that so much. So he's not just a guy in a suit arguing about tariffs on the Senate floor. He is an American demigod.
Totally.
But wait, why anthracite? That's a specific kind of hard coal, right? Are they just trying to say his eyes are black?
It's deeper than just the color, actually. Anthracite burns incredibly hot and clean, and it's notoriously difficult to ignite.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it requires intense heat to catch fire, but once it does, it's a furnace. By describing his eyes as burning anthracite, the script is subliminally telling the listener that Webster possesses this deep, unyielding, almost industrial internal fire.
Wow.
It's a very specific, grounded American metaphor for inner power.
That makes so much sense. Because the Living Fiction text goes right on to list his mythological feats before we ever even hear his voice in the present action of the plot.
Right, they build the legend first.
They say that when he spoke, the stars and stripes literally appeared in the sky.
Which is such a great visual.
And they say he once argued against a river and made it sink right into the ground.
And think about how that functions on radio, you know? You don't have visual special effects. You have a narrator explicitly telling you to imagine the impossible.
And my absolute favorite detail, the narrator claims that when Webster walks through the woods with his fishing rod, The trout just voluntarily jump out of the streams and right into his pockets.
They just surrender.
Exactly. Because, as the script says, they knew it was absolutely no use putting up a fight against Daniel Webster.
What's fascinating here is how this technique instantly anchors you, the listener, in the tradition of the tall tale.
Yeah, it really does.
By the time Jabez Stone, our desperate farmer, even thinks about making a deal with the devil, you have already been primed to accept the impossible.
Because you've already bought into the river sinking.
Exactly. If you believe a man can make a river sink into the earth with a speech, you are completely ready to believe he can argue a case against the devil himself. The script builds a magical infrastructure before the plot even starts.
Yes. You have to establish the magic rules of the universe early. But then you look at the Great Plays transcript, the one starring Raymond Massey, and it is a completely different vibe.
Night and day.
They don't mention the jumping trout or the river at all.
Completely different. The Great Plays adaptation takes the opposite approach. Instead of a demigod, they give us the grounded statesman.
Right. He is introduced simply as a neighbor. Jabez Stone is having a wedding, and Daniel Webster is just a guy who shows up to the party.
Just a local guy.
He's mingling with the locals. He's drinking 10-year-old Medford rum out of a jug. He's stepping out onto the porch to smoke a cigar. He feels like your uncle at a barbecue, just a really famous, politically powerful uncle.
And when he speaks, he references actual, tangible history.
Right.
In the Great Plays script, when he is eventually asked to take Jabez's case, he casually mentions his political schedule. He says, I've still got the Missouri Compromise to straighten out, but I'll take the case.
Like it's just another meeting on his calendar.
Yeah, he talks about fighting John C. Calhoun and Henry Clay. These were real flesh and blood political heavyweights of the 19th century.
I have to ask, though, isn't there a risk of boring the listener with that? Dropping 19th century legislative trivia into a ghost story.
It's a valid concern.
I mean, if I'm tuning in for a spooky tale about the devil, do I really care about the Missouri Compromise?
It's a fair question, but it's actually a brilliant narrative device for this specific adaptation.
How?
Well, the Missouri Compromise was an agonizing real-world legislative battle over the extension of slavery. John C. Calhoun and Henry Clay were giants of the Senate who Webster constantly battled and compromised with to keep the Union from fracturing.
Right. The stakes were literally the survival of the country.
Exactly. So by invoking those specific names and events, the Great Plays script tells the listener that this Webster operates in the real world of grueling, complex, messy human compromise.
Oh, I see. So it creates a totally different emotional setup.
Yes, exactly.
The Great Plays version roots the story in relatable humanity. If Webster's a real guy with a real political day job who just happens to be enjoying a cigar at a wedding, his ultimate sacrifice, risking his own life and soul to defend this farmer, feels much more grounded.
It makes it a profound human choice.
It really does. Whereas the living fiction version leans into the supernatural clash from the very first sentence.
Exactly. One gives you a battle of titans, the other gives you an act of immense human sacrifice by a tired politician.
But man, you really feel that Titan energy in the living fiction version when they introduce his horses. We have to talk about the horses.
Yes. Constitution and Constellation.
Constitution and Constellation.
Yeah.
Just the names alone.
So good.
They are matched grays, and the script says they step like greased lightning. There's this great moment where Jabez tells Webster he's going to kill the horses, driving them so fast to meet the devil, and Webster just laughs.
I love that line.
He says, no, I won't, not these two. I like doing things full tilt, and so do they. Put fire in your veins. It is just this perfect distillation of American patriotism blended with myth. Even as transportation is woven out of the founding documents and the ties themselves.
It creates a tremendous sense of auditory momentum. You can hear those hooves tearing up the road in your mind.
Oh, absolutely.
So we have our legendary defense attorney firmly established, whether he's a mountain of a man with starlight in his eyes or a cigar-smoking statesman worrying about the Senate. But as we know, even the greatest lawyer needs a client. And if Webster is this towering figure, what kind of absolute catastrophe would require his services? Enter Jabez Stone.
Right. We have to transition from the myth of Webster to the tragedy of this farmer. Because the inciting incident, the moment Jabez actually sells his soul, is the engine of the entire story.
It's the core of everything.
Let's look at the anatomy of this deal.
Well, in both adaptations, the core of Jabez's character is crucial. You know, he isn't inherently an evil man.
Right, he's not a villain.
No, he isn't sitting around his farmhouse plotting the downfall of humanity or dreaming of infinite tyrannical power. He is simply cursed with terrible, soul-crushing luck.
And agricultural luck, specifically, which is a very unique kind of devastation.
It really is.
If you've never farmed, it's hard to understand, but the living fiction script details it so well. It says if he planted corn, he got borers. If he planted potatoes, he got blight. Stones kept cropping up in his fields like they were multiplying underground.
It's just relentless.
And the detail that really got me, he trades a horse with the spavins for a horse with the staggers, and he still has to give something extra to make the trade. I mean, what is that?
Yeah, let's break down why those specific ailments matter, because it's so telling. Spavins is a degenerative bone disease in the hock joint of a horse. It makes them chronically lame.
Oh, that's awful.
And the staggers is a neurological condition where the horse literally loses its balance and coordination.
Wow.
So Jabez trades a physically broken animal for a neurologically broken animal and somehow comes out behind on the deal.
It is just endless, grinding misery. He can't get ahead.
It's the friction of daily survival wearing a man down to absolutely nothing. And the final straw, the actual inciting incident that triggers the supernatural plot, is something incredibly mundane.
Yeah, it's not some grand dramatic moment.
No, it's a broken plowshare. He's out in his field trying to turn the earth. He hits a hidden rock and the metal plowshare snaps.
And he just loses it. I think anyone who has ever had a run of bad luck can relate to that moment where one tiny final thing breaks and you just snap. We've all been there. In both versions, this is the pivot point. He yells out to the empty field that he is so sick of it all, he would sell his soul for 2 cents.
But how the two productions handle the motivation and the immediate aftermath of that shout is where they dramatically diverge.
Really dive into that because it's fascinating.
In the Great Plays version, Jabez's motivation is deeply poignant, and it's heavily focused on his family. He has this incredibly emotional confession to his new wife, Mary.
Right, Mary is a major character in the Great Plays version. She has dialogue, she has agency, whereas she's mostly invisible in the living fiction version.
Exactly. In Great Plays, after the devil comes to collect, Jabez tells Mary that he did it for her.
Oh, man.
He says the farm was only stones and blight, and he'd lie awake at night trying to figure out a way to get somewhere to give her a decent home. It frames the demonic deal as an act of desperate, misguided love.
That is so heartbreaking.
He wanted to provide, and the universe refused to let him do it through honest work.
So the Great Plays version makes him incredibly sympathetic.
Yeah.
He's a tragic victim of circumstance trying to be a good husband. But then you look at the living fiction transcript, and the moment he makes the deal plays out with this brilliant, almost pitch-black comedy.
Oh, totally.
Mary isn't there in the field with him. It's just Jabez and the devil, who shows up almost instantly after Jabez yells about the 2 cents.
The devil in this version is wonderfully pragmatic.
He really is.
Jabez says he'd sell his soul for 2 cents, and the devil essentially steps in to negotiate him up.
Yes. The devil says 2 cents isn't much. It wouldn't even replace that broken plowshare.
It's like he's doing him a favor.
He tells Jabez that even an old, moth-eaten soul would fetch a better price, and he offers him $200 down and the promise of making him the richest man in New Hampshire.
It highlights a completely different kind of desperation.
Yeah, it does.
It's less about a romantic, self-sacrificing husband and more about a man who is so broken by poverty that he doesn't even know the market value of his own immortal soul. He's ready to give it away for pennies until the devil, acting like a fair market appraiser, corrects him.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. In that living fiction version, we get a physical manifestation of these souls that is just wild.
Oh, this is the best part.
There's this scene later on where the devil comes back to check on Jabez's farm.
The collection box scene.
The collection box. The devil has this little pocket box, and suddenly something escapes from it.
Just pops right out.
The script implies this frantic action where the devil's running around trying to catch it with a handkerchief, and it sounds like this tiny squeaking moth.
It's such a bizarre auditory image.
And Jabez he recognizes the buzzing sound. It's his neighbor. He says, "That was Miser Stephen's voice, and he ain't dead. He was just as spry and mean as a woodchuck yesterday."
And the devil, very casually, admits that, yes, he caught Miser Stephen's soul. He even complains that it's such a weak little soul, he didn't even think he needed to put a lock on the box.
I mean, if I'm listening to this on the radio in the dark, that is such a bizarre, terrifying, and oddly funny image.
It's so weird.
A man's soul buzzing around like a trapped insect, while his physical body is presumably still walking around town doing business.
Yeah.
It's body horror meets spiritual accounting.
It really is, and it raises a vital point about how the story physicalizes the spiritual.
Right.
The devil treats humanity as literal commodities. He's an accountant of souls, keeping inventory in a pocket box. And he tells Jabez not to worry, assuring him that Jabez has a very good grade of soul that will be kept securely under lock and key.
And he explicitly compares Jabez's soul to Daniel Webster's.
Yes.
He says a man like Daniel Webster would require a totally special box, and the wings spread would astonish you.
That is a crucial metaphor in the text. Well, the souls of the greedy and the mean, men like miser Stephen who only look out for themselves, shrink until they are moth-like and insignificant.
Oh, I see.
But a soul with magnitude, a soul that wrestles with great national ideas and massive passions like Webster, has a massive wingspread. It's a beautiful way to visualize the spiritual weight of a person without getting bogged down in heavy theology.
That makes perfect sense.
It makes the abstract concept of a soul something you can almost see and measure.
Which brings us perfectly to the entity actually holding that collection box.
Yeah.
Because you can't talk about a demonic contract without talking about the guy holding the pen.
Exactly.
Let's dive into Mr. Scratch.
The original American, as he provocatively claims to be.
The portrayals of the devil, referred to mostly as Mr. Scratch, are so compelling in both versions, starting with how he enters the story, because his entrance sets the tone for everything that follows.
Definitely.
In the Great Plays adaptation, his entrance is highly dramatic and deeply disruptive. Remember, we established Webster was at Jabez and Mary's wedding.
Right, the community celebration.
Jabez has been trying to hide the fact that the 7-year term of the contract is up, just desperately hoping the devil forgot about him. But then Scratch appears out of the crowd. He literally crashes the wedding.
It's so aggressive.
He hijacks the fiddle from the local musician and starts playing a terrifying tune.
Just takes over the whole party.
He asks the crowd if anyone wants to know the name of the song and says it's called Are You Ready, Jabez Stone? And the transcript notes that as he plays, the church bell starts tolling. But not a wedding bell, a funeral bell.
In the middle of a wedding.
It drives the neighbors away in absolute terror. It's an aggressive, invasive entrance. He violates the sanctity of the community and the wedding itself.
Contrast that auditory explosion with the living fiction entrance we touched on earlier in the field.
It's like night and day.
He doesn't crash a party. He just strolls up to Jabez after a clap of thunder. He describes himself as a sort of agent. He pulls out a document to comply with, as he says, the laws of the state of New Hampshire and the earth beneath.
He makes Jabez prick his finger to sign it. He's a smooth-talking bureaucrat. He's wearing funny pointed shoes, but otherwise he's just doing business.
Very corporate.
So if I'm understanding this right, the Great Plays version treats him as an active, terrifying, supernatural predator tearing a community apart. The living fiction version treats him almost like a predatory loan officer.
Exactly. The contrast is between the devil as an overt supernatural terror and the devil as an insidious, banal administrator.
That is so creepy.
But both versions share one incredibly chilling moment, and it happens much later, during the legal confrontation with Daniel Webster.
Right. So Webster arrives, takes the case, and he's immediately trying to find a legal loophole to avoid the contract. And he tries to throw the case out by invoking the United States Constitution.
Classic lawyer move.
Right. He argues that Jabez is an American citizen, and no American can be forced into the service of a foreign prince. He references fighting England in the War of 1812 to establish that exact precedent. And this is where I was genuinely taken aback reading the transcripts. Because when Webster tried to throw out the case by saying an American can't serve a foreign prince, the devil counters by claiming he's basically a founding father. Am I reading that right? He claims citizenship.
That is exactly what he claims, and it is arguably the most brilliant, subversive piece of writing in the entire story.
It blew my mind.
Scratch acts deeply offended that Webster would call him a foreigner. He says his name is older in America than Webster's.
Let me read the exact quote, because it's chilling to hear these words spoken by the devil. Scratch says, "When the first wrong was done to the first Indian, I was there."
It's so dark.
And in the living fiction version, he adds, "When the first slave ship put out for the Congo, I stood on her deck."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the narrative using the character of the devil to embody the dark side of American history.
Wow.
It's a profound literary device. The story is a patriotic tall tale on its surface, but through Scratch's legal argument, it forces the listener to acknowledge the nation's original sins.
He claims he is in all the books and stories and beliefs from the first settlements onward. He says the North claims him as a Southerner and the South claims him as a Northerner, but he is just an honest American.
Just an honest American.
He's basically saying, I didn't invade this country. I was baked into the foundation.
It's important to look at this purely analytically as a narrative choice. By having the devil claim citizenship through the historical atrocities committed on American soil, the narrative strips away the comforting myth of pure American innocence.
It totally undermines Webster's usual tactics.
Exactly. Think about Webster's position here. Webster wants to stand on the high ground of the Constitution and the lofty ideals of the nation. But Scratch stands on the blood that was spilled to build it.
It forces Webster to realize that he cannot win this case on patriotic bluster or constitutional technicalities alone, because the devil's claim to the American soil is historically verifiable.
Right. He can't out-argue the history.
Wow. Okay. That is incredibly heavy, and it completely shifts the ground under Webster's feet. He can't just wave the flag and win. So what does he do? He demands a trial by jury.
It's a huge gamble.
He says he doesn't care if the jury's the quick or the dead, as long as it's an American judge and an American jury. And Scratch, having just established his American credentials, smiles and says, "You asked for it."
And that leads us to the legendary climax, the Court of Appeals midway between chaos and night.
I just get shivers thinking about how this scene must have sounded broadcast over a radio in the 1930s or 40s. Scratch claps his hands, and he summons a jury of the dead right there in Jabez's kitchen. But not just any dead. He summons the damned.
It is a meticulously curated roster of traitors, renegades, and tyrants.
Let's look at who is actually on this jury, because Scratch introduces them to Webster one by one. You have Simon Girty, a renegade who the script notes burned men for gold.
Terrible person.
You have Blackbeard Keach, the bloody pirate, who is described with a black beard curling on his breast. You have Governor Dale, a politician who broke men on the wheel.
Broke men on the wheel. Just horrific.
And Reverend John Smythe, who is described as walking daintily into the room, but he's a strangler with the red ring of the hanging rope still visible around his neck.
Wait, a strangler? That is such a vivid, terrifying detail.
It's a literal murderer's row. And the judge, it's not just a random ghost. It's Justice Hathorne, the infamous hanging judge from the Salem witch trials.
A famously merciless figure.
When he's introduced in the living fiction version, he is still unrepentant centuries later. He just mutters, "Hang 'em all, hang 'em all."
Now, consider the legal strategy here. The entire system is rigged against Webster from the first gavel strike. The setting itself is a mockery of justice.
It's completely unfair?
When Webster tries to make standard legal motions, Judge Hathorne shuts him down instantly.
Oh, it's so frustrating to read. You can feel Webster's panic. Webster says, "I move to dismiss this case on the grounds of improper jurisdiction." Hathorne bangs the gavel. Motion denied.
Just immediately rejected.
Webster tries insufficient evidence. Denied. He moves that the jury be discharged for open bias. Denied. In the living fiction version, the devil won't even allow a cross-examination of the witnesses.
A trial with no cross-examination.
He tells Webster that there is no cross-examination in the Court of Appeals midway between chaos and night.
What this does structurally is strip Daniel Webster of all his usual weapons.
Everything that makes him great.
Exactly. We've established he is the greatest orator in the country, a master of legal precedent, a man who can sink rivers with his thundering rhetoric, but logic, precedent, and anger hold absolutely no power in hell. These men don't care about the law. They are the lawless.
The devil even goads him. He tells him to speak if he wants, but warns him that if he fails to win an acquittal from this jury of monsters, the devil gets to take both Jabez's soul and Webster's soul.
So the stakes are doubled right at the last second.
And this is where we see the true genius of Daniel Webster's character in this story. He is backed into a corner, facing the worst humanity has to offer, and his own soul is on the line.
It's the ultimate test.
How does he win an unwinnable case against a rigged jury of the damned?
He pivots completely. He stands up and he admits to the jury that he was going to defy them. He tells them he was going to thunder and roar and tear the contract to pieces.
Like he usually does.
Right. But he says he looked into their eyes and saw his own hate and fury reflected back at him. And he realizes that hate is a weak weapon against men who are made of it.
That is so profound.
He realizes that you cannot out-hate the devil. You cannot threaten men who are already damned and burning. So instead of shouting, he whispers. He speaks to them, as the text says, of small things.
I want to dive deep into this closing argument because it is just a masterclass in empathy. He doesn't talk about the law. He doesn't mention the Constitution.
Not once.
He reminds these absolute monsters of what it felt like to be human.
Yeah.
He brings up the freshness of the morning, the taste of bread, the wind rustling through the trees, the blue sea.
He appeals to the sensory memories of being alive because hell, in this context, is the absence of those simple, tactile joys.
That's beautifully said.
It's brilliant rhetoric. He ignores their crimes and speaks to the physical reality of the earth they left behind.
He tells them that despite their failures, despite their treachery and their horrific sins, they were once men. And he argues that freedom is the essence of being man.
Yeah.
He says that there is sadness in being a man, that we are all tricked and trapped, but that somehow we rise again.
It is a profound argument about the shared human condition. It's crucial to note that he doesn't excuse their crimes. He acknowledges that they broke freedom with their own hands.
Right. He's not letting them off the hook.
Exactly. But he insists that because they were once men, because they lived and breathed on this soil, they still retain a spark of that original humanity.
And he ends with this incredible, desperate plea.
Mm.
He tells them not to let the country go to the devil.
It's brilliant.
Because he aligns the salvation of this one poor, unlucky farmer, Jabez Stone, with the salvation of the American ideal itself. He basically tells them, you ruined your own lives, but you don't have to let him ruin this one.
The emotional turn in the jury is incredibly moving to listen to, especially in the living fiction transcript, where the script actually gives voice to the jury members' reactions.
Yes. Webster specifically targets them in the room. He looks at Simon Gertie, the renegade, and asks if he remembers the wind.
And Gertie, this monster, breaks down.
He says he remembers the night air hitting him so hard it felt like his chest was breaking. He asks Captain Kidd if he remembers the sea, and Kidd says he longs for the stormy sea and the cracking sail.
Webster uses their nostalgia for the living world to break the devil's conditioning. He makes them feel the weight of what they lost, not through punishment or fire, but through beauty.
Wow.
He reminds them that they had something the devil never had, humanity.
And it works. The jury actually defies the devil. The judge asks for the verdict, and the jury, risking whatever further wrath the devil has, finds Jabez Stone not guilty. They tear up the contract.
It's a victory of shared humanity over transactional evil. It proves that even the most corrupted soul still remembers the taste of fresh bread.
It is so triumphant. But having explored the story itself and how it plays out in these transcripts, I think we need to step back.
Definitely.
Because the framing of these two specific broadcasts changes the message of the story in some really interesting ways.
Yeah.
I mean, they took the exact same core narrative and packaged it for two completely different audiences.
This is a crucial part of the analysis. We have to look at neighborliness versus folklore. We need to examine why these broadcasts were made and how that purpose shaped the listener's experience.
Let's start with the Great Plays broadcast. This one is framed very explicitly as a Christian allegory. It doesn't hide it at all.
Yes, the meta-commentary surrounding the play is impossible to ignore. The host of the Great Plays program, a famous actor named Walter Hampton, introduces the play on behalf of the Episcopal Actors Guild.
Which sets a very specific tone.
Very specific. And both in the intro and especially in the lengthy outro, he frames Daniel Webster's actions as the ultimate act of what he calls neighborliness.
He gives this whole impassioned speech at the end of the broadcast. He says that sincere good neighborliness is more than just surface friendliness. It's not just waving across the fence.
Right, it's deeper than that.
It is based on a willingness to truly sacrifice for someone when they need assistance.
He directly connects Webster's actions in this fictional story to real-world religious movements happening at the time. He references the World Council of Churches in Amsterdam.
That's a huge connection to make.
He argues that true neighborliness means risking your own soul and worldly wealth for a man you hardly know, exactly as Webster risked everything for Jabez Stone.
The broadcast literally ends with an invitation to visit your nearest Episcopal church. It uses the story as a profound, compelling sermon on community sacrifice and inner strength.
It's very effective messaging.
It views the devil not just as a folk villain from a spooky story, but as a real spiritual threat that is overcome by Christian charity and community defense.
What's fascinating here is how seamlessly the story supports that interpretation. You can absolutely read it as a parable of Christian redemption and grace.
But then you turn to the living fiction transcript,
Yeah.
and it is a completely different framing.
It is stripped entirely of that religious commentary.
The NBC and Northwestern University production treats the story purely as American mythology.
Right. It begins and ends with that local legend we talked about at the top of the show. The thunderstorm, the rolling voice in the hollows of the sky, yelling at Webster's grave to see if he'll answer.
It feels more like a campfire story.
The focus in the living fiction version isn't on Christian charity. It's on freedom, the Constitution, and outsmarting the devil as an act of American pride. It belongs to the tradition of oral storytelling, of passing down tall tales that explain the landscape and the character of a region.
Yeah, it's about a guy who was so good at arguing he beat Satan on a technicality and a speech about the morning air.
It is wild that a single text can serve as both. It is a profound religious sermon on community sacrifice in one studio and a rip-roaring piece of patriotic mythology in another studio.
It just proves how flexible and resilient the core narrative really is. You can project almost any framework onto it, and the story still holds up.
Which brings us to our takeaways.
Yes, as we wrap up this deep investigation into these transcripts, we have to ask, what is the enduring brilliance of this story? To me, it's not just a cool supernatural courtroom drama, though it is a fantastic one.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a deep reflection on what we value.
It asks us to examine the compromises we make when we are desperate. Jabez didn't sell his soul because he wanted to rule the world or be an evil tyrant. He sold it because his plowshare broke, his horses were sick, and he was tired of suffering. He wanted a break.
And it reminds us of the enduring power of our shared humanity. Webster didn't win by being a better, trickier lawyer than the devil. He couldn't win on the law.
No, the law was rigged.
He won by reminding the damned that they used to be human. He won with empathy.
It's a powerful message, regardless of whether you view it through the lens of a church sermon or a fireside folktale.
I completely agree. And I want to thank you, our listener, for joining us on this journey. We know you could be anywhere doing anything, but you chose to sit with us in the thunderstorm.
It's been great having you along.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from sinking rivers and burning anthracite eyes to the squeaking soul of Miser Stephen, and we hope it gave you a new appreciation for these incredible audio artifacts.
And before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Think back to Scratch's collection box in that living fiction broadcast.
The pocket box with Miser Stephen buzzing around inside it.
Exactly, the moth-eaten soul squeaking inside the box. We don't usually find ourselves standing in a muddy field signing contracts in literal blood today.
Thankfully, no.
But in our modern world, with all its complexities, we make compromises. Small, cynical compromises for the sake of convenience or success, or just to get ahead in a frustrating system. Are we, day by day, slowly shrinking our own souls until they fit neatly into a little box?
Oof. What is your 2 cents?
Something to think about the next time the sky gets dark, and you hear the thunder rolling in the hollows of the sky.